Great to be back with FromTextToSpeech.com for Season 4 of this podcast is uncalled for. Warning, this episode contains strong language or mature themes. Parental discretion is advised.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Alright.
Cool.
Welcome to this podcast is uncalled for.
What's uncalled for about it?
Oh, you can't tell anything in this.
I'm listening.
Oh my God, what are you doing?
I worship Cthulhu just for the free beer.
Eggs are cheap and so are pancakes.
But you didn't even give a chance for a wild card spot.
What are we doing with Tijuana?
And you're like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
The exact sound I make when I'm...
That is uncalled for, Michael.
Well, the name of this podcast is Stuff Uncalled For?
This podcast is uncalled for.
Podcast, alright.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous ending to that game that I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up. Oh my gosh, I gotta hurry up.
We're looking at each other in the eye. We're not going to say anything derogatory to the other person. And, of course, neither of us is drunk.
So I don't hear Pope Francis saying that he's a prophet, seer, and revelator.
What planet are these people on?
And then look, thank you, back from.
See, this is a disgrace.
How'd that happen?
And it's got Chick-fil-A.
Don't allow you to think.
Hey, we're getting somewhere.
And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernevsky.
Fuji!
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Again, special thanks to Kansas City Fringe Festival for giving us this opportunity to come at you in a digital format. And today's guests, we have a return guest. For those of you who've been listening to the podcast since the beginning, please welcome back to the podcast, Mr. Chris Hurt.
Thank you, Michael. It's good to be here again.
It's good to have you again. So we'll start this with the alphabet game, and we'll start with the letter D, as in Dr. Pepper is not sponsoring this podcast.
Everyone is familiar that is an agnostic beverage.
Fairly sure you're correct on that assumption, yes.
Good to know that we're starting off here with common ground.
How true, how true.
Ice really makes just about any soft drink beverage, if you ask me, better. Makes any soft drink better, if you ask me.
Just thinking about that myself. Yes.
Kind of nice to be on the same wavelength.
Likewise.
Many people like the taste of Dr. Pepper. 23 unique flavors. I was starting to say 3 and 20 like you do in any other language.
Nobody's going to care about that, but that is a good point. If we're talking about Spanish, for example, would be 23. And Japanese would be Niju-san.
Obviously, I'm not quite as familiar with either of those two languages as much as familiar as you are. I think I tried a semester of introductory Spanish at the community college.
Obviously, languages aren't everyone's forte, but that's how we communicate, you know?
People have developed language, and it's one of the more interesting evolutionary concepts.
Quite true.
Robots, they don't speak the same way we do. They just read programs. They don't have feelings. They don't react. They just run programs.
So I've heard, and so it's been explored in science fiction forever, it seems like.
Technically true. I was actually quoting from a 1986 movie called Short Circuit with Fisher Stevens. You may or may not remember that movie. Interesting piece of trivia is that there was a sequel 2 years later.
Underrated film, and also I say Dr. Pepper reference. I think that's one of the first things that number 5 actually sees after he escapes that lab is the billboard for Dr. Pepper. It said, "Wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?"
The very viral ad campaign that was in play at the time. Producer Sales Organization helped to finance that film, and there were plenty of product placements that were probably cut, or at least that were shown during the closing credits to the film.
Well, product placements has been in the film for a while.
Exactly, and they ought to just go ahead and add another Academy Award section for product placement in film, and probably by the year 3000 they will certainly have one, provided the Academy Awards continue.
We won't be around by the year 3000, but that's something interesting to think about.
Zealously, I would have to agree with you, whether you're talking about you or I or the human species as a whole. But who knows by the year 2525 if anyone will still be alive.
Absolutely sure. I'm just talking about you and me. I'm fairly hopeful that the human race will still be around for millennia to come.
Because you could have been plural, and it could have certainly talked about the entire human race. And I hope we're still around too. There's all kinds of interesting futurism out there has worth in being explored.
Certainly.
Don't you just know it?
And I feel we may have missed a letter there, but that's okay. No. All right. So, how are things?
I would say all of us are lucky to have survived last year in one form or another, and that can be taken so many different ways.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think about this time last year, I was preparing the first batch of Fringe episodes for the podcasts. We had intended to do them live, but obviously circumstances, dictated otherwise. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how those episodes came out. So.
Wonderful. So many conventions and gatherings and concerts and have been affected by not being able to be held.
Mm-hmm. It's less true of sporting events. They're still holding sporting events, but in most cases, they're not letting a whole lot of people attend. Heck, I was lucky enough because of the soccer team that I supports to attend a few of their games last year. Very lightly attended, but I'm still glad I got a chance to see them.
What level of competition were they at?
So Santa Fe are a local. They play in a local league, and they're semi-pro. So.
I didn't get out to see too many movies. How about you?
Oh, heck no. Seems like all my movie watching or TV watching really has been right here on good old internet.
I did Get out to the movies twice last year, and both were to see the cinematic adaptation of Sonic the Hedgehog.
All right. So how's that movie?
It is worth watching, and especially worth noting that when the visuals for the movie or the first trailer for the movie appeared, everyone was put off by the way that Sonic the Hedgehog was animated, and an effort was made to redo those scenes so Sonic actually looked like Sonic, the way you either saw him in the video game or in any of the many animated series out there.
Mm-hmm. As I seem to recall, Sonic the Hedgehog at one point was voiced by Jaleel White, better known to people of a certain age as Stephen Urkel.
Yes, that's true.
Yep.
I am blanking on exactly who did the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog for the movie, but I can look that up for you here real quick.
Yeah, that's what IMDb's for, yes. Yeah.
Well, let's do that in post. But I do know one factoid. The voice actor also performed the role of Dewey in DuckTales 2017, a recent reboot that was both on the Disney Channel and Disney XD.
Okay, cool. I haven't seen any of the new DuckTales, but I'm an aficionado of the old DuckTales.
What's nice is they've found a way to bring a lot of characters in from the Disney Afternoon lineup and integrated them into a very good universe. The original DuckTales was more inspired by the Uncle Scrooge comics that started around 1952 than they were informed by any of the animated shorts that starred Donald Duck, etc. Although we're both familiar with the Christmas special that aired that had Uncle Scrooge as
He's a Scrooge. Yeah.
Yes. So that's always a fun thing to watch. Are there any do you have any movies or different things that you watch over the holidays as a
well, I guess we could talk early South Park here, because one of my favorite Christmassy things to watch is the original Spirit of Christmas short that launched South Park.
Woodland Critter Christmas is also always fun.
Yeah, that's a mess. That's pretty messed up. Yay! Our Critter Christmas can finally happen. Hail Satan!
I had to go there, ladies and gentlemen. There was, fortunately, I think you probably have a disclaimer at the start of it. So if you do any searches and look that thing up and know that South Park is typically a show that contains mature themes and mature language and mature or just plain violence, you won't be surprised by what you find.
Yeah, South Park's been around, I think, long enough for people to know that. But every single episode always starts with that disclaimer that it should not be viewed by anyone.
And all celebrity impersonations are
done poorly.
Yes. Always good. I know last season, just because of the restrictions on everything, that they didn't produce a typical full season of 10 episodes. They have done two specials.
Yeah, they did two 2-hour-long specials.
I saw a little bit about the pandemic special, and it was interesting because they basically had to send workstations to all their animators to the animators' homes.
Right.
It was an interesting ad hoc solution to the
right
problem.
And it's an interesting episode too. Cartman has a nice little opening number. And then today don't have to do a thing. I love you, social distancing. Just singing about the praises of social distancing and all that, ignoring school and eating cheesy poofs as though they're cereal. Yeah. And the second special, the vaccination special, kind of left me feeling sad, as though it felt like they were going to wrap wrap up the whole series. But we shall see. Yeah. And of course,
it's been a few
thing,
years since they went to a 10-episode format.
Yeah, it's been a little over a year. Yeah. So, and totally understandable too. So, yeah, of course, one thing I've been watching a lot of has been Star Trek. So all the new stuff that's been coming out and will be coming out. So, yeah.
Final Frontier, Below Decks, a second series of Picard, and a fourth season of Star Trek Discovery.
So yeah, it'll be Discovery season 4, and then it's Lower Decks is the name of the series, not Below Decks. Which is funny. It's fun. It's funny as heck. It's Star Trek animated, first of all, so you could do a lot more things than you could do with a live action show, and it's funny. It's intended to be a comedy, and they do a good job with it. So far, my favorite moments from that show. This one focuses on the ensigns on board the USS Cerritos, which is not a glamorous ship at all. In fact, the promo material for this show said they're one of the least important ships in Starfleet. So as a result, you have these ensigns. In this particular instance, they're all slacking in between jobs, and they dubbed the term buffer time. And then one of the ensigns happens to be in a turbo lift with the captain, and mentions, I made sure I did all my duties, and made sure I didn't use up all my buffer time. Oh, turbo lift halt. What is buffer time? And it spends the rest of the episode making sure everyone is doing their duties at a certain amount of time, and just driving everyone crazy and everything, except ironically for the incident that blabbed about it. Yeah. So that's funny. Picard, that's certainly a departure from traditional Trek as well, because it focuses primarily on Jean-Luc in his dying years. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't seen season 1 of Picard, he dies in the final episode, but is reincarnated as an android. And yeah, Strange New Worlds. That's the Pike series that spun off from Discovery. That's in production as we speak, and there's going to be a kids animation as well called Prodigy, and that one will feature get this, a holographic version of Captain Janeway and a bunch of Delta Quadrants aliens, one of whom kind of resembles the Cheat from the Homestar Runner cartoons. So.
And the actor who played Captain Janeway is reprising the role.
Yeah, Cam Mulgrew is reprising the role. Albeit this, it's animated, so it's just her voice. So yeah.
Nickelodeon?
Yeah, but they'll be in the CBS Now Paramount app as well. So, all Star Trek in one app.
I haven't looked for anything on Paramount Plus. What's your experience with CBS All Access before they've renamed it?
I had a good time with it. I was able to. I watch it primarily I use it primarily to watch Star Trek, but I could branch out a little bit more. I have yet to subscribe to the Disney app, we'll definitely need to do that at some points because I'm certainly missing out on a lot of cool stuff. And yeah.
The fear of missing out is a good motivator for anybody, I figure.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's a good idea to miss out. So one of the things I learned about recently, there was a festival a few years ago called the Fire Festival. Did you hear about this?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so a music festival that's supposed to take place somewhere in the Bahamas, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And people were screwed out of thousands of dollars a pop, all because of this whole fear of missing out thing. Because they know what they're doing marketing wise with that thing, but not so much on the execution.
It was the Caribbean equivalent of Woodstock 94.
With fewer hippies.
It was overhyped and oversold. It was supposed to be this ultra luxurious thing, concerts, but it has taken on a level of infamy.
Yeah. So much so that there were 2 documentaries done on it, which I've yet to see either of them, but I've heard about them. That there's this one woman in the Caribbean who made sure everyone got fed. Yeah, they got fed cheese sandwiches, but she was out a lot of money because of that, and wound up doing a GoFundMe to get her taken care of. So that's probably one of the highlights, was that woman was it'll recoup her losses. But one of the funnier stories I heard about that was that they held a bunch of bottled water at customs, and the sleazy organizer of this thing told one of his underlings, "Yeah, go to the customs office and perform fellatio on the guy." But the customs like, "No, just pay us. Yes, you don't need to get down on your knees and all that." Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Goodness. And there were no places for anyone to stay or be. The accommodations were non-existent.
They set up a bunch of FEMA tents. And yeah.
That was that was for the fortunate people.
That's where people actually showed up. Yeah.
It made DashCon look like Vegas.
Wow.
DashCon, of course, being the famous Tumblr convention that basically ran out of money, and for a little bit more, you could spend a little bit of time in the ball pit, which was not much larger than a child-sized inflatable pool filled with the type of spheres you would find in a ball pit.
Yeah.
But at least those people were at a hotel in where they had access to running water,
right,
and electricity, etc. But yeah, quite the scenario there.
Oh yeah.
What was your favorite thing about last year, if you had?
My favorite thing about the past year, well, I was probably, let's say, doing DoorDash. That's probably been the defining thing of last year. Yeah. And I'm still doing it, of course, because still got to make money, and it's going the idea was for it to be a second job while I'm doing the chess thing, but it's practically full time. But I'll still be able to do both chess and DoorDash once we get back a little closer to normal. Which good news about I'm there. We're talking about June is when we'll start being able to do camps again, and hopefully we'll be able to start in the classroom and the clubs again, starting with the new school year.
My favorite part of last year is that life didn't change too much for me. I'm not exactly a social person.
Mm-hmm.
I would go hit the drive-through. I would hit my sandwich shop. I would go to work. I would come home, and it didn't change much for me. So that that was what I liked best about last year.
All right. Yeah.
If I had to choose one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, of course, on the chess side of things, we've been doing online tournaments using this very software, and our good friends at chess.com as well. So that in that aspect has been good. Because we've been doing it online, we can have people from literally all over the world come and play chess with us, and we have a couple of regulars from Mexico, one of whom is an international master. Yep.
What other countries, or has it primarily been?
It's been primarily local people and our two friends from Mexico.
I've had the privilege of being able to meet with a few friends that I haven't been able to meet face to face using this type of video conferencing software as well, and I think that's been a nice development, being able to use the broadband and the telecommunication infrastructure that's been developed over the last few years.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if it wasn't for this software, the podcast would really be in trouble, I think. Yeah. And of course, on the international thing, I'm spoiling for everyone. This will come out after the Fringe shows on our RSS feed. So anyone who's listening, it'll be the next one coming up. For everyone who's watching at Fringe, please subscribe to the podcast. It's with a gentleman in Amsterdam. So yeah, talking about internet.
A lot of discussion about football about that, and
correct.
Association football, soccer.
Association football, also known as soccer, but we touch on American football as well in that discussion. And we're not going to spoil it much beyond that, so do keep an eye out for that episode coming up next.
It's an interesting point where we had spoken a little bit ahead of this podcast today, just to say about the different things that we didn't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And since you had already talked so much in that podcast about those subjects, and I'm just simply not knowledgeable on either of those topics other than a vague understanding of what they are. And the fact that our local team, the Kansas City Chiefs, have gone to the Super Bowl for 2 years in a row for the first time in half a century.
Well, yeah, first time ever going to two straights, but yes, first time in 50 years since they appeared in the Super Bowl before either of us were even born. So, yeah.
I have a friend who's actually the same age as the Super Bowl, and his birthday is around the same time of the year as the Super Bowl. So it's very easy to keep those things in my mind.
Sure. That's good to know. Yeah.
All kinds of mnemonic devices to help me remember the birthdays of the people in my life. Do you find yourself using anything like that, or?
No, I don't. But probably should start. So, I don't know. But yeah, that first Super Bowl, yeah, the Chiefs lost that Super Bowl to Green Bay.
By the way, tell me if I'm stepping out of line if I sound too much like the host when you were the host.
No, I prefer kind of this whole back and forth and everything. If anyone wants to step in and mini host for a while, that's perfectly all right. It happens.
This is probably as conversational as I get, unless I was slightly more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got together with some friends, and we haven't seen each other in about a year, and it was nice to get together. And I think we watched an episode of Firefly.
Take my love, take my land, take me where I cannot stand. Yeah. Love that show. Yeah. In fact, last time I had you on here the first time, we talked about playing Comic-Con and how Adam Baldwin, the actor who played Jane, was at that Comic-Con and all that. So that's something I'm definitely looking forward to, is back to possibly going to those conventions and whatnot. Before the pandemic started, I was slated to volunteer at SawesomeCon and do some media there. And one of the voice actors who was invited, the same guy that did that video we were talking about, his name's Bill Butts, and who is currently doing voice work in LA. A pretty cool guy and everything. And it would have been a chance to get him on the podcast. So Bill, if you're listening or watching this, please PM me and we'll get you on the podcast somehow. So, yeah, Bill, whom of course I met doing student media at JUCO.
You were both a student and I guess you were a lab aide there in the journalism and media. Did they call it media arts, or what did they call it? Journalism and media?
It's basically student media is what it was. Yeah. So the way it was set, that student news center was set up, it was TV and radio and the Ledger all in one place. Yeah.
The Ledger is the student newspaper.
Student newspaper, yeah.
I remember back before they built a dedicated building for the student services, that used to be where financial aid was.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right. Yeah.
That's how long ago I don't want to say I'm old, but I've been around for
about
enough
the
decades.
same age. Come on.
Yes. Well, it's about getting on 25 years out of high school. That's where that's the generation you and I are in. We're just starting to get to where I don't understand these teenagers anymore, and I barely remember being a teenager myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I actually participated in anything that necessarily defines the American teenage experience either. Did you do anything that would typically be associated with the standard American teenage experience during your teenage years?
Playing football. But that was only 2 of my high school years. So junior, senior year.
Varsity and junior varsity.
Yeah.
Did you do any I know that they typically start the youth athletics very young, sometimes 3 5, 6 years old, sometimes younger. At what point had you started to play football in your youth?
Junior year of high school. I'm being absolutely serious. Yeah.
They let someone
Here's my
with
thought
no
on
youth sports.
Here's my thoughts on American football. Because it is such a high impact sport, wait until high school before you even think about playing it. You know, because by the time you reach high school, you should be old enough to make those decisions for yourself. All right. The Pee Wee level that I think you're talking about, that's on the parents. If the kids get brain damage because they're playing Pee Wee football, that's on the parents. You get brain damage trying to play football at high school level or above, that's on you.
Just because you're a little bit more aware of what types of injuries, what kind of forces are in play.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You need to make those. You need to be informed about.
Here, I thought we weren't going to talk about sports, but
yeah, I guess we are kind of talking about sports. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I feel like
so on the subject of sports, my nephew, he's 5 now, and he's going to be 6 here in a couple months. But he started playing baseball recently. I think he's playing second base, but judging from the video my sister-in-law posted, and he's having a lot of fun doing it. But then baseball and football, two radically different sports. There's a great routine by the late George Carlin talking about the differences between baseball and football, which I highly recommend to our audience. Baseball is played on a diamond in a park, the baseball park, but football is played in a stadium, sometimes called Soldier Field or War Memorial Stadium. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the tone of the entire routine. Is baseball is very uplifting, everything, whereas football is very militaristic. Yeah.
One of the things I've been doing over the last year is watching a lot more YouTube than I had, and I was interested to find out that the early career of George Carlin is a little bit different, or started to become a little bit different around the early to mid 60s. He used to be a lot more straight-laced, but he started to become a bit more cynical, a bit more on the side of social commentary after he observed the way some of his fellow comedians were treated by law enforcement, etc.
Oh yeah.
And again, I'm only talking early 60s. I don't want to try and approach any kind of current event beyond any type of discussion of media properties.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Carlin himself actually wound up in jail, and in a case that wound up in the Supreme Court over his famous 7 words you can never say on television. And of those 7, I think you hear about 4 or 5 of them on TV now on a regular basis. So
one of them, I think, was repeated probably around 167 times in a particular episode of South Park.
Yeah.
And I know that because they had
they kept the running they had the running counter in the corner there, and they got up to 162. So, ironically, coincidentally, the number of games in a Major League Baseball season.
I would not have known that particular piece of trivia.
Yep. But
I don't even know if trivia is plural or not. I don't know if that's a trivium or that's a piece of trivia in itself.
But yeah, the word in question, yeah, the first of the 7 words that you can never say on TV, and it got to a point that they don't even bother bleeping that word out anymore, depending on the networks.
They can get away a little bit more with that on the basic cable channels than they can on the 5 or 6 major over-the-air broadcast networks.
I even hear the word shit sometimes on the news. So
what was interesting around 25 years ago was when they first put the TV ratings on the screen, and I'm pretty sure they can get away with it on shows rated TV 14 and TV MA.
Right.
And they generally have the SV, L and D secondary.
Right, to tell people if there's language or violence or anything sexual going on and all that.
The D stands for sexual dialogue.
Yeah. So, anywho, yeah, that
I don't know
is
that they've been able to get away with quite a bit more on streaming.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, to use Star Trek as an example, the first season of Discovery, first ever use of the word "fuck" in any form of Star Trek. You guys, this is so fucking cool. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. No, you're right, cadets. That is fucking cool. So they've been a lot more loose with language, particularly Picard. Quite a few F-bombs in that show.
Well, that is a very specific type of hubris.
Yeah, the sheer fucking hubris. And certainly not the only F-bomb dropped in that series to date. So, yeah.
And it's interesting because I was pretty sure that the use of both thermal and otherwise nuclear weapons had ceased, or at least we had developed more advanced weaponry by the 24th century in the Star Trek universe.
Mm-hmm.
I was really reaching. That was supposed to be funny, but if it is, A bomb, F bomb, H bomb, just there's at least 20 other letters in the Latin alphabet we can go with for something there.
Right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the advent of streaming really has loosened things up in terms of language being used.
Not a bit unlike satellite radio.
Yeah. It's funny. I could get satellite radio for my car, but I choose not to. In fact, certainly in the early days of owning my current car with the satellite radio, I kept being bugged by Sirius about look, I just don't want to pay for your service. I'll stick with the terrestrial radio or plug my devices in and listen to a podcast there,
Any particular genre of podcast that you enjoy yourself?
Well, aside from my own podcast, I'll listen to sports podcasts. I'll listen to Star Trek related podcasts. There's a really good Star Trek related podcast right now called The Delta Flyers, which is Garrett Wong and Robert Duncan McNeil, who played Harry Kim and Tom Paris, respectively, on Voyager. And they're rewatching all of the Star Trek Voyager and talking about what they remember about their those particular episodes that they're reviewing and everything. So I highly recommend that one. And I'm listening to a few of my local podcasters because now I'm the head of the podcasters meetup, and listening to and supporting some of my fellow local podcasters. So there's one the podcaster is a former plastic surgeon, and her entire podcast is about plastic surgery and different procedures and everything. And there's another one that he came to one of our online podcaster meetups once. They do it's called Audio Obscura, where it's kind of like a game show type thing. They listen to 6 different clips of a particular piece of media, and they have to figure out what it is. So, yeah. Also highly recommended.
Do they have to secure the rights to that particular piece of media before they use it, or?
That is a good question. I think because they are commenting on it, that it would fall under fair use. But yeah, you do bring up a very good point about copyright laws. Yeah.
The local podcast community, is that in any way related to the local filmmaking community? Do you have any?
There is a little bit of crossover. There's a little bit of crossover. I do know of filmmakers who are in the or who are also in the podcast community, but not many. Yep.
It's just another outlet for the creative persuasion.
Oh yeah, yeah. Same is true of anything creative. Yeah, that is going to be the case. Yeah. So, and it's just another way to network with people about doing stuff. So.
Are there any particular online resources that you've used in creating the meetups or meeting those involved in the local podcasting community?
meetup.com/podcasting-15 is the podcasters meetup. So of course, for those who have been living under a rock for the last almost 20 years, meetup.com is a place where you can set up meetup groups on any subject that you want, and they encourage you to meet regularly and stuff. So with the podcasters meetup, we try to go once a month. So
I think the first time I ever learned about the phrase meetup was around 2004.
That sounds about right.
I want to think that was around the time that Howard Dean was running for the Democratic nomination for president, and
yeah,
at least that is the context of when I first heard the phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Howard Dean, I actually got to be in the same room as him a few years later on the JUCO campus. He helped run a workshop for a weekend there. So, but that's getting into politics, and I will just end with that.
Again,
the dude is short in person. I will say this: the dude is short in person. Yeah.
Probably very pleasant, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh, good. I apologize if if we seem to be running aground or if I've talked over you more than a dozen times.
Nah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that.
The best thing to end awkwardness, or at least what I've heard, is to call attention to it, and it becomes less awkward.
All right.
I've watched a lot of YouTube. There's a channel out there called Charisma on Command, and that's something there are many things to learn on that channel. They analyze the behavior of a lot of celebrities during celebrity interviews, etc., and say this is how you can have more charisma in this situation. Not to plug anything, I'm not compensated.
Yeah. No one's making any money off of this episode, but yeah, I'm going to plug a couple of YouTube channels right now. So one is called Sous Vide Everything, which is devoted entirely to cooking sous vide. Are you familiar with that method at all?
I am not even sure. I have never heard of that before.
Okay. All right. So you and our audience are going to learn about
what type of cooking is that? Is that a?
So I'm going to describe the process. So the first step, you put your food in a plastic bag. You get all the air out of said plastic bag. Sous vide comes from the French for under vacuum. So you're basically creating a vacuum in this in the bag. And then you put that bag with your food into a tub of hot water that's being heated by a machine called a circulator. And that circulator is set at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. I actually got one of these things for my birthday this past year, and have used it a couple times. It works very well, particularly with chicken. It seems to work really well, and that's all you need to do is you put your food in the bag, get all the air out of the bag, then put bag in tub of hot water, and you're going to just let it sit there for a while, usually hours. Then you take it out and you prepare it and everything, and that's basically how sous vide works. So yeah, this particular channel, they like to do a lot of experiments with sous vide. Like they'll like one of my favorites is they marinated pork tenderloin with various different sodas and fruit juices, and they would do an experiment which one tastes better and everything. So, or they would do experiments on cooking at different temperatures at different amounts of time and everything. So I do highly recommend that channel. And there's a second channel as well by the same guy. It's called Guga Foods, Guga Foods, and that's also a cooking channel. But that one deals more with the grill and everything. And there's a lot of good natured humor in these videos as well. So
all ages kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
General audiences and instructive.
Exactly.
Or at least instructional.
Yeah.
One of those things you can put on your mobile device, set it to the side, and be the culinary Bob Ross of the situation.
Yeah. And on the subject of cooking videos, I've seen a couple of these videos by Gordon Ramsay recently where he's critiquing amateur cooks' food, and quite entertaining, I will say. So, of course, Gordon Ramsay, the British chef known for yelling at people and being quite colorful, shall we say. Yeah.
Owner of restaurants. There's Kitchen Nightmares, where Ramsay goes around to underperforming restaurants. I believe it was first a series in the United Kingdom, and then ran as a reality show, probably on Fox alongside Hell's Kitchen.
Right. Yeah. And my understanding is one of his restaurants is right here in Kansas City over at Harris Casino. Whether they're still open or not, I don't know at this point, but is certainly during these pandemic times, I've not gone up north of the river all that much. But pre-pandemic, it was just down the road from where the moved chess club office was. So I would literally drive by it all the time going to the office. So, yeah.
Casinos were one of the many businesses that were operating under certain restrictions. Not necessarily so true in the Las Vegas area.
Right. We're talking more like the local stuff. So, yeah.
Our business has not necessarily been, or at least that's not one of the main industries in the area.
Oh, heck no.
Tourism and travel have been highly impacted sectors.
Yep, I agree there.
I only know a general thing. I probably should take a moment and probably watch more Bloomberg Business, and I might have a better idea about what I'm talking about. I don't claim to be any kind of expert, not that that matters.
No one's going to be an expert here, no, sir. Yeah. No. Yeah. All right. So,
have you given any listen to? Go ahead.
Go to the Brony community.
It's been an interesting time. The last time you and I had spoke, the 9th season had begun airing. The 9th season concluded around Columbus Day weekend in 2019. They had a spin-off show called Pony Life. It was kind of a different style animation. They also have a 5th season coming up, and that should be on Netflix this fall. Also, the style of animation has changed. The previous show, what's called the 4th generation of My Little Pony, was called My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It was animated in Adobe Flash and had a 2D style of animation. They also had a movie in 2017, which was done more in Toon Boom animation. The 5th generation will be also computer animated, but the imagery will be 3-dimensional. They released the names of the main 5 characters of the show. One of the main sites that exists in the Roni fandom, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically a fan of the program. It's a portmanteau of the phrase bro and pony. So you have the phrase Brony, and that website is called Equestria Daily. Equestria is the fictional land in which the characters from the 4th generation My Little Pony reside. Apparently, that is also the same place where the characters of the 5th generation reside. However, there appear to be some more modern day contrivances that exist in our present time than existed in the universe of the 4th generation. There were steam trains, was about the level of technical sophistication. What's interesting is that one of the characters was introduced alongside a sibling character recently, and one of those characters was holding what appeared to be a mobile phone, a smartphone actually, which is quite a bit more advanced than what you would be expecting for a. It seemed out of place, but one of the first publicity images for the 5th season showed a bedroom with a lamp, and actually what was interesting is that when people zoomed in, as they had figurines of the 6 main characters from the 4th generation of the show in the background. There's excitement around the show, and Pony Life was kind of a stopgap in between. You had a lot of the same characters from the 4th generation, just in a different setting for a different toy line in between. I believe the 2nd season, as far as I know, is only airing in the United Kingdom, and the 1st season was aired on the Discovery Family Channel last year.
Okay, then.
I try to keep up with these things, but
that's pretty cool. Now the idea of ponies using cell phones, that's interesting to me.
Because what's interesting is that the pony characters in this universe are true to the equine archetype. They have 4 limbs, and those 4 limbs all have hooves. They don't have workable digits yet.
They don't
Somehow
have opposable thumbs.
What's interesting is that in the 4th generation show, somehow they were able to manipulate their front appendages in ways that actual horses are not capable of doing. Also, the size of their craniums are a bit larger. The executive producer of the show described the characters as having human-like intelligence, although they are in equine bodies. There are also all kinds of, shall we say, less than desirable and somewhat questionable elements of the Brony fandom. If I was to recommend any type of viewing on this subject, I would suggest going to a YouTube channel by Jenny Nicholson, and there is a video on there called The Last BronyCon, a Fandom Autopsy. BronyCon was one of the premier fan conventions for the Brony fandom, and the middle 2 letters of BronyCon are NY. The primary location for the convention was New York, but I think they might have had some regional conventions. There are still some that exist to this day. Of course, last year they had to not hold too many of those, as much as just about everything else was suspended.
So, wow, this guy has an ASMR video. Brony ASMR. Oh my god.
I would not know a thing about that. As long as
so ASMR, that's when they're whispering into the microphone and then doing making interesting sounds. Like, for instance, that would be an example of ASMR. And and the idea is to relax people. That reminds me of a video I saw of a British panel show where they would bring in a guest, and the one panel is like, well, this is so and so, and they do so and so. Turns out she's another one of these ASMR people who does videos on YouTube, and the other panel has to guess what exactly who exactly is telling the truth on the other panel, right? And And one said, one of the other lies was, she's my karate instructor. Yeah. And the guessing team there, it couldn't be the ASMR thing because that rapping thing, it just sounds so confusing that I'm going to pretend I never even heard of it. Yeah. So really funny. Yeah, okay, it's been about an hour, so do you care to wrap things up?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Have you had much involvement in the theater community since Fringe Festival was? A lot of them have gone to the. Do they call them online or distance or what?
Yeah.
Virtual. They've been calling them virtual conventions.
This is the second year in a row that KC Fringe has been virtual. So
San Diego Comic-Con has been one of the more popular that has gone virtual. Plenty of I think I'm trying to think of what the Rooster Teeth convention is called.
Mm-hmm.
They've probably gone virtual. That virtual has been the key word throughout. There have been so many things that have decided to call themselves something different over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
But virtual conventions are certainly a thing and might be a thing that will continue for quite some time. I'm sure the travel and tourism industries would hope that those things.
Yeah, there's been a lot of benefits to doing things virtually. Like I mentioned one earlier, international participation and be able to do it in a home studio like this one. But there are certain drawbacks to it, but this will definitely be a tool I keep in my arsenal from this point forward. So,
which I hear is an excellent football club around London.
Yeah, Arsenal Football Club in North London. Yeah, which is a perfect segue for those of you listening on the podcast. Perfect segue into our next episode.
I thank you for the opportunity to join you again, Michael.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you agreeing to come on at the last minute, and thanks for helping me out, and thanks for helping out KC Fringe. And for those of you watching on Fringe, thanks for watching us. And you got 2 more shows to watch, so I will leave you to it. Thanks, and we hope to see you again soon, and we hope that you'll keep supporting us however you can. So, thank you.
These are all the things I want. Soft Pacific echoes. I'll go searching in the evening for that calm, for that home. The Yamanote don't end. Bide your time for another one. A typhoon hung over the station. Then when it comes.
This podcast is Uncalled For is hosted, produced and edited by Mike Chernefsky. Opening music is Fantasia by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. Outro music for every episode of the 2021 Kansas City Fringe Festival program is Ibiki Gaki Koeru Pacific Echoes by Pierce Murphy, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution License, and Secret of Tiki Island by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting platform. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/uncalledforpodcast, and check out our blog with show notes at uncalledfor.home.blog. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.